Good evening, everyone. I want to thank everyone for attending the Mount Olive Township Council conference meeting for December 10th, 2013. I'd like everyone to please rise for Pledge of Allegiance and take a moment of silent reflection.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll be seated. Mrs. Lashway, would you please read the Open Public Meetings Act announcement?
According to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Daily Record. Notice has been posted in the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, and notices were sent to those requesting the same.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ferranti?
Here.
Mr. Nacastro?
Here.
Mr. Perkins?
Here.
Mr. Roman?
Here.
Mr. Stazak?
Here.
Mr. Mania? Mrs. Laybow?
Here. Also tonight, I'd like to welcome Brandon Shields from Troop 156 out of Flanders. And Brandon's dad was a firefighter in Flanders. And we also have his mom here this evening, who is with our Flanders First Aid Squad. And also this evening, we have our Township Attorney, Fred Samro, making a special appearance. I have to tease, I'm sorry, folks. Mr. Canning, our Business Administrator, Sherry Minikowsko, our Financial Officer, and Mrs. Lashway, our Township Clerk. And I just want to thank our Clerk's Office for making the font on my agenda nice and big so I can read it. So, with that said, the first thing on our agenda is our library insurance contribution. Mr. Canning, would you like to discuss that with us?
Sure. This is just a advisory to the council. We had met with representatives of the library the last several weeks, and at issue was the method of calculation as to the library's contribution for the overall premium from the GIF. Now, there's two methods of calculating this, and neither one is necessarily wrong, but the library had asked that we revisit this issue. Traditionally, the library's assessed value, since we own the building, is about 12% of total premium. So traditionally, Mr. Casey had instituted this years ago. They logically got 12% of the premium cost. So that's how it's been calculated all these years. This year, it jumped up to about $113,000. As we know, we fund the library based upon the state mandated percentage. So they had asked if we would be considered to revisit this to make it a little bit more, in their view, equitable, and to a certain extent, we do agree. In touching base with the GIF, the other method of calculation is upon risk, by location and by department. And in the GIF's eyes, as far as risk goes, they're a lesser risk than 12%. The reason being they don't have a fleet of vehicles. We don't operate with the DPW garage or backhoes or the police, where we have patrols out there, and we have that PPL liability. So that was a lower percentage. So after speaking with representatives of the library, the mayor, Sherry and I, after about a week or so, we came up with the formula, which we plan on introducing in the budget this year, if council finds it acceptable, of dropping their contribution. Instead of $113,000, we're going to wean it down to $50,000, which is double what their exposure is. So we're kind of meeting in the middle. We're not going all the way down, so we adversely affect the other departments, but we're also not making them disproportionate to their operations a percentage of the premium. So that's what we're presenting in front of council today. We'd like to get your consent on that, and we'd like to include it in the budget moving forward.
Mr. Roman?
How is this plan better over the option of having the library go out on its own and getting their own policy?
Yeah, they're not going to be able to. They can, and when speaking with our underwriters, and they started going, we've given them the freedom to go outside there. There's two things. One is the GIF coverage. There's no way it can be replicated in the private market. One of the beauties of the GIF, and why almost every town and city and library in the state is involved in a self-insurance, is we have $5 million of general liability for everybody in the township. On top of that, we have an umbrella liability of another $10 million. It's a $15 million policy. That can't be replicated in the private sector. For them to pay that, it would be astronomical. On top of that, our experts, Mr. Dietz at our risk management, started looking around on their behalf as well, said, okay, fine, if you want to go down this route, what would you have to pay? The max coverage they could find out there was about $2 million in coverage, and they would need 9 separate policies. They're already covered for environmental, cyber crimes, our usual liability, workers' comp, slip and fall. They'd end up, instead of our one policy that we get through the JIF, they'd have to get 9. So it would far outstrip the $113,000.
All right, thank
Sorry
you.
for a long-winded.
Nope, nope.
Any other questions from council? What, Mr. Kenning, what is actually their premium for that building? Because you said it's a portion of the shared overall premium?
Yeah, well, it's not a fair market premium, but their portion of the assessed value and their risk came out to about $28,000, I believe. So we met in the middle because they recognized it would be a burden on the rest of the township to go from 113 to 24, dump that back into the general fund into our budgeting. So we ended up coming down with a 4-year weaning down to 50,000. Now they do acknowledge, it is our building. We do have the option of saying, well, listen, it is what it is, and just we'll take our ball and go home. We wanted to play fair with them, and certainly the trustee board was very happy to see that.
Well, the question I have, since we have to, by state mandate, give them $0.33 on our tax base, if we're asking back for more than what the building is actually insured at on the policy, are we then making them receive less than $0.33?
No, they're at 1.06, I believe, in the current budget.
Yeah, they're going to get the $0.33, Colleen, no matter what. That's the bottom line.
Okay.
Okay.
I just want to make sure so that we didn't have anybody from the state come in and say, wait a minute, you're taking away their $0.33 to pay for other township buildings, and they're not.
In their $0.33 calculation, we've always charged them for a pension, we've always charged them for health insurance, and we've charged them for the JIF bill. That's been that way in the 13
Okay.
years I've been here. Okay.
Okay.
And
I
it's a
just-
valid library expense, obviously, which is why we charge it against the $0.33.
Good. Okay, I just wanted to ask that question to make sure. Very good. And the board is happy with the resolution
Yes,
of
they
the
are.
issue?
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's our plan and intent going into the budget season, and
Okay.
more questions between now and then. That certainly try to vet them out.
Great. Now, next on the agenda is the Flanders Park Place Sewer Project, but one of the residents who has the most properties there is not here yet, so I'm going to put this off until she arrives, and we'll discuss it further on in the meeting. Next, we have resolutions, and we have a new resolution, is that? We have one added resolution for discussion this evening, and this one has to do with resolution of the Township of Mount Olive providing for the transfer of the 2013 budget appropriations for the current fund budget because of the, Sherry, do you want to speak to it? The additional funds we need to...
For storm control.
For storm control.
Storm.
Obviously today, yesterday. Fortunately, today's storm was, while it's inconvenient for travelers to and from commuters to work, on a township part, it's good because it was basically handled during regular working hours, so we didn't have to go into overtime pay, which is always a good thing.
We're back out there again this evening.
And we're back out there this evening. As Mr. Kenning knows, two of my neighbors got stuck on the street trying to get around the bend of 3rd and Eisenhower, and when I got down the end of 3rd trying to turn on Woodland, I could not get off my street. I kept backing up, and Ray knows the intersection well. I had to kind of make a running start and hope that nobody was coming because I couldn't stop. I was not going to get out on Woodland. And fortunately, I did. Well, twice I had to stop and back up because somebody came, but I did. Obviously, I'm here, so I made it. And but that's great. I know before being on council, snowstorms are nice if you don't have to go anywhere. But once I was on council and started going through the budget process, all of a sudden, a slow-moving storm. I didn't see snowflakes. I saw dollar signs coming out of the sky. So it's a lot to consider, and so that's what we're doing tonight, adding more money into the budget. The rest of the resolutions, Mr. Roman?
Sean, and Sherry, this $90,000 transfer at the end of the year, is this on par for previous transfers at the end of the year, or is this a slight anomaly?
Honestly, I don't know what the storms are going to be like through the end of the year, Alex. So, Tim gave me an idea of what he needed now, which was about $30,000. I figured let me double it to be safe, because we only have one more meeting, and I don't want to have to call everybody back for an emergency meeting. So, I'm hopeful this is going to cover us through the end of the year. I don't know if it's on par with what he's used for prior years off the top of my head. I don't know.
I mean, my concern is whether we have enough in next year's budget. if we had to
We
do this
actually
kind of thing?
increased next year's budget already, I can tell you that.
Okay.
But also, I
Because- yeah.
think that if you don't use the 90,000, obviously it goes into the next year's budget anyway, and it's easier to have it available than to not.
If we don't use it, it will go to surplus at the end of 14.
14?
Yes,
But it'll
absolutely.
stay in storm control, because that's what it's being transferred to?
No, this is being transferred to roads, not
To
to,
roads?
not to, we have an accumulated snow trust.
Okay.
If we have unexpended money, we can transfer it into the snow trust, which we've been able to do in prior years. We didn't have any unexpended money. If anything, we were short, which is why I have to
Okay.
transfer money in now.
Good.
Okay, but we did put in more money in the 14 budget, just so you know.
Okay, great. Mr. Stazak?
Nope.
Oh, I thought you had.
Nope.
Anybody else have a question? Mr. Shields? No, nothing? Okay. Next on our agenda, we have old business. Any old business anyone like to discuss? Seeing none. Any new business? Okay, seeing none. I'm going to, I think what we're going to do is we're going to just go ahead and move the sewer, Park Place sewer discussion to the public meeting. We're not going to hold up the workshop. Elizabeth, Phyllis is definitely coming. I talked to her earlier. Okay, great. Because Phyllis is, of course, a very, everybody is an important part of the whole project, but we need to have Phyllis here. So we had no new business. I'm going to open the meeting to the public. Anybody from the public have anything? Seeing none, close the meeting to the public. And may I please have a motion to adjourn to our public meeting?
So moved. Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay. We are now officially into our public meeting. We've already had the Pledge of Allegiance and our moment of silence during our workshop, and I'd like to ask Mrs. Lashway to please read the Open Public Meetings Act announcement.
According to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Daily Record. Notice has been posted in the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, and notices were sent to those requesting the same.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Frente?
Here.
Mr. Nacastro?
Here.
Mr. Perkins?
Here.
Mr. Roman?
Here.
Mr. Stazak?
Here.
Mr. Mania? Mrs. Laybow?
Here. Also for the public meeting, I'd like to welcome Mr. Brandon Shields, Troop 156 out of Flanders, working on his citizenship and the community badge. And Mr. Maney has been excused from the meeting this evening. And next on the agenda, we do have a presentation from the Mount Olive Lions. Oh, okay. Sean, did they do that at the tree lighting ceremony instead of here? Yes?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
Yeah, they did.
They're saying yes. Okay, so we're not going to have that. I would like to say that the Leos, which is the high school group for the Lions Club, had a wonderful event on Saturday at Motion Kia. And it's really nice to see all of our students and younger population in our community getting involved in having events and actually helping a lot of our businesses in town, which is a beautiful thing. And we just had Phyllis and Quentin have arrived. We moved the discussion to the public meeting instead of the workshop for you to be here. So next, but we're going to have that in a few minutes because we're going to have our NJDEP Green Acres Program public hearing. Mr. Brzezinski is going to give us some information on it, and then we'll have some public discussion.
Good evening. This hearing's part of a Green Acres program application for a minor diversion of parkland owned by Mount Olive, portion of Flanders Park. And it's subject to DP Commissioner and the State House Commission approval. The project it relates to is Marvin Farms. It's a 221 lot, age-restricted development at the corner of Pleasant Hill Road, Bartley Flanders Road, Aronia Road, main road intersection. As part of that project, there's a widening of the intersection and traffic signalization. As part of that, there's a small stretch of right-of-way that's required and some drainage easements required that are on the Flanders Park property, which is part of the Rossi. So when you encroach on that property, you have to go with Green Acres to get a diversion. It's basically 1/10 of an acre. So we're talking about a strip of land, just like I'm gonna say in layman terms, just off the edge of roadway, pretty much, on Pleasant Hill Road. And what this application contends is, it's 1 acre of property from Flanders Park, which is block 6,000, lot 12, for additional right-of-way and drainage easements for the construction of the improvements at that intersection. That's going to be replaced with approximately 13 acres to be dedicated from the Meadowland, from the development's property for public recreation and conservation purposes. It's on block 6,000, lot 5, adjacent to the southern boundary of Flanders Park, near Rosewood Ditch. It's the upper end, right, that's what I'm gonna say, just, I guess it's kind of like north from Rosewood Ditch area. Well, it's subject to DB Commission and State House Commission approval, and the final documents are presently still under state review and subject to their approval. We've been going through months of discussions back and forth. Mason Consultants handling the actual application, and we're going back and forth with the state for items that they need, that needs to have an appraisal done, so forth. All those documents, the final document's not completed yet. There's still some review being done by the DEP. The application was the hearing was properly noticed. Signage was installed on the site for notification at tonight's meeting. So everything's pretty much in order at this point. I guess we should open it to the public if there's any public here for questioning. If they want any more details
Okay,
showing the
very good.
location of the diversion. We have maps here if it's necessary.
First, I'm going to ask council if they have any questions. No, see none. I'd like to open this portion of the meeting to the public. Anybody from the public have any questions? Yes, sir. Would you please come to the podium, and we'll need your name and address for the record.
Brian Nath, 52 Crenshaw Drive in Flanders. Are there any other improvements other than the turning lane? Any signaling or?
There's a traffic
light-
signalization. It's going to be fully signalized.
So there'll be a traffic light there?
Yes.
Okay, that was it. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public have any questions? Council? Okay. Thank you. I'll close the portion to the public, and
Just one thing, sir, if you don't, excuse me, if you don't mind, could you just sign in with your name and address for the records? It's going to be part of the public hearing.
when is this work going to begin?
The actual project,
Well, yeah, for that intersection.
well, the project's going to probably start, hopefully in the spring sometime. As far as when that intersection, the schedule, I don't know at this
Okay.
point.
So at some point when they get to it.
That's part of phase 2, right, Gene?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. See,
I guess
everybody
that's it.
satisfied? Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Mr. Brzezinski, you want to stay right there, and we'll go into the, do you want to?
Right, I'll stay, no problem.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to come up on the dais here and sit? And is it more comfortable? Okay, great, thank you. We're going to, like I said, we're deviating from the schedule a little bit, and we're going to have the discussion on the Park Place Sewer project. And I'll give Mr. Sean, do you want to do an introduction for this?
Sure. Thank you, Madam President. As council will recall, this issue has been before this body several times over the last year and prior to that. Something that had come out of the, I guess, the survey or the vote that was commissioned by council last year. While it was overwhelmingly turned down on virtually the entire area, the lone anomaly was Park Place, which was about 95% in favor of the sewers. Mayor Greenbaum had directed both myself and Jean to meet with the residents who on that strip there had expressed such overwhelming sentiment in favor of this project. So we had met through the spring as well as again in September, and the last plan that I had given to council and what we had said we would do was to bring an engineer's proposal before this body late in the year with the option of either funding it from this current year budget, which I can report to you today, we can't do it. It's not going to be done in 2013. As you can see before, you had to transfer funds just to make sure we have the road salted and plowed this year. Currently, until council tells us otherwise, we have before you an engineer's proposal, and I'll go through that in a second, but currently we have that in the 2014 budget. Now, council tells us otherwise, it will be removed, and I imagine it'll be part of the budget hearing process. But what came out of our meetings and asking Gene for his expertise in the matter, and the mayor's direction, was to come up with a proposal from the engineer as to what would have to be entailed to be submitted for an NJEIT grant, a New Jersey Environmental Infrastructure Trust grant. Now, NJEIT provides either low-cost loans or grants, depending on how flush they are with funds. In the past, they've given 50% grants, and then another 25% low-interest loans and 25% taken up by the municipality. So it does vary. But the intent is to, if council approves, to approach the NJEIT in October of 2014. It's a very lengthy process. It's a lengthy grant. They generally give you some indication if they're going to approve it by March the following spring. So we're still looking about a year and 2-3 months away. And at that point, it would trigger, bidding documents and if the process was to move forward. But retracting to Mr. Buzinski's estimate and his envision, and I'll ask him to come up in a second. His proposal is broken down in 5 parts that would have to be borne by the township prior to a application. And the first would be surveying services, geotechnical engineering, permitting, preliminary and final plans. This is the real nuts and bolts as to what would, what the costs would be if we were to move forward on this project, and what kind of funding we'd be seeking from NJEIT, and the EIT application itself, which is $20,000. So the total cost that is presented before council today and anticipated to be before you in the 2014 budget is $136,000. Subsequent to any NJEIT approval, any other engineering and construction costs and observation would be borne by the grant process itself, and the anticipation is about another $69,000 or $70,000. So, Gene, do you want to come up and speak as to how you envision this?
That's no problem.
You're good at this stuff.
I'm good at this stuff. The thing is, with the grant applications, there's a lot of documents that have to be provided through the state. It's presented to them with the application, because what happens with NJIT applications, all the design is done up front. That's where the costs are right at the beginning. And then once you get the once you get approval for that, it's called planning and design phase. Then after that, once you get the award, then it's basically construction phase. It's inspection contract and things of that nature. But everything has to be pretty much up front and done as you get ready to submit your application to the state. It's kind of, you'd like to get an application, then submit the design, but that's not how it works. You gotta get everything in together.
And just to follow up before we get to the public, if council has questions. So the discussions with the residents of Park Place, obviously they're very much in favor of this process. The question before council and part of the internal discussions is, what does council do with when this line, and it's a low pressure system, I believe we had
Yes, that's what we
said
talked
was the
about.
cheapest alternative. Going down Main Street to the interconnect of Flanders Bartley Road, those residents along Main Street, while initially had indicated that, in that portion there, they were against this. Our
Some.
ordinance-
Some of them.
Some.
Yeah.
I don't have the numbers here, so
Right.
I can't give you, verbatim. And in the interest of fairness, there were some that were for, some that were against. What does council do at that point? The ordinance says, okay, you have to connect. So, our positions in speaking with the mayor is that, if council is to go to that point, then some serious consideration should be given to saying, yeah, you have to connect on this line. The only scope of this work, as spoken about, was Park Place to Main down to Flanders Bartley. No expansion based upon the both the wastewater management plan, which once you get over the tracks, we can't do anyhow.
Yeah, you're all in the planning area right now.
It's, there's the planning, because once we get in there, we can't do it anyhow. And, this scope, based upon that prior survey, just seeking to give relief on the residents of Park Place.
Just one other issue, Sean, regarding St. Elizabeth's. We had discussed it in our meetings. Their line's a lengthy line to get to serve the actual property. So what we're gonna do is, so costs don't get exorbitant just because of the St. Elizabeth connection. We're providing them a connection on the main and going into their site. Then they have to connect to that point. So basically providing them a service connection, but they would have to fund getting to that point. There's two crossings on their property, and it gets involved as far as the cost goes, unfortunately.
Mr. Roman?
What's going to be the cost to the users on Park Place? What kind of rates, and what's it doing to the rest of
That's
the rates?
beyond me.
Yeah, we haven't even gotten to that analogy yet, up to that analysis. Right now, the question that was put before the mayor and myself was, what would the engineer cost if we were to do an NGI EIT grant? How much would it cost the township to do that full engineering work? And then do we go ahead October of 2013 and apply for that grant?
I think it's also subject to what type of funding we're gonna get from them too, from the state. And what percentage, you know?
It sounds like there is no guarantee on getting the grant.
NGI, the one, if this was prior to Hurricane Sandy, I would say it's almost guaranteed, because they were flush with cash. In post-Hurricane Sandy, it's certainly being used in other areas in New Jersey, especially down the shore. You know, there was some serious gas main disruption, so, you know, it is more competitive than it was a year ago. I can't say what it would be in October of 14.
That's the only thing on that, is, you probably just hit it, Alex, is you gotta put these costs up to get to that point, and if they don't give you the grant, are you gonna still fund it in other means, or you're not gonna fund it?
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
the question, is
I
that
for one, I think we should definitely proceed as there is no grant, and whether this is a project that we want to not only just figure out whether, you know, what the cost would be, but, you know, if we're gonna go full force with
That's
the
the
project.
$1 million question, so to speak, not
Yeah.
putting a price tag on there, but we don't know the full construction cost until the plans are
Yeah.
done, correct?
We
can have a
have preliminary
ballpark
cost,
estimate.
we gave, I think it's fairly accurate preliminary cost, but I think overall the project was gonna be like $800 to $1 million, I believe, offhand. And that's what it's projected to be.
It'll be $1 million. Without a doubt.
Mr. Stazak?
Out of this 136, Gene or Sean, if we get the grant, is any part of this 136 reimbursed to us, or is it?
It's all not gonna be reimbursed, it's all part of the funding.
It'll be put back to us.
Yes.
From the grant or the loans or whatever we get. Now, how many, Sean, you know, refresh my recollection, how many properties are we talking about? Approximately.
Park Place, what, 20, 25? About
I thought it was like 28, I think.
28.
Yeah,
Could be wrong.
it was close to 30,
Yeah.
right? 30.
And how does this bode as in any future expansions of sewers in it? Is that something that would, let's say later on we,
If you want to do other areas.
if we wanted to do other areas, if we do it piecemeal, I'm assuming that's gonna cost us more in the long run had we taken on the full project
Well, it's
as
gonna
previously.
it'll just be expanding the system. I mean, if you did a larger project all at once, you'd probably get some cheaper costs. You know, you're doing smaller projects, so it's the unit price from contractors is gonna be a little bit higher when you do a smaller section of a project. But I think what happens, you're limited here because of the preservation area, where you really can't get into that preservation area. That goes back to the question we had way back when about the failed septic systems in the area. We'd have to have some good documentation to the state to be able to even have them consider extending the lines in the preservation area.
Excuse me.
It's going to be highly unlikely in the future.
Also, the other part of that is, Gene, I'm over here. Hello? But I sound like I'm back there.
Yeah, you do.
I'm a ventriloquist. Alex, the other part of this equation is that last year in April, the state went, turned around and changed the regulations. And if you have a cesspool, whether it's operating or not, you pass title, you have to put a septic in, or you have to hook up the sewers if available. And Sean did an evaluation for me with Frank Wilpert Sr. in the Old Flanders area, and at that time we found out that 15 of those properties in Old Flanders had cesspools. 12 were unknown what they had. Several have been kind of limping along with the septic systems that they have, hoping and praying that they're going to get sewers, because most of the properties, especially along Park, do not have enough property to put a new septic in. And it's so wet on the section, especially where Phyllis Shelton's area is, Matt Johnson's office, St. E's. because of the water behind there. Thankfully, Phyllis Shelton had actually, and Quentin built a swale years ago to try and keep a lot of the water from flooding the properties, and so she lost a tremendous amount of her property at her own expense. But the area, in all likelihood, would not even perk. Therefore, what they call an above-ground septic system would have to be put in, like the little turkey mill or mountain kind of a thing, and they're a lot more expensive than a regular septic. So, in reality, this project along that section is helping to preserve those properties actually, and help a situation that the state kind of created by mandating that cesspool, if you pass title, has to be a septic, and most of those, I think the majority of those properties, they can't even put in a septic, without a tremendous cost. Like the above ground systems generally run, my experience in real estate, and we've had to get estimates, most of the time you're talking about $45,000, where generally a regular septic, the underground type, if the property perks, is about 20-25, depending on availability of space and the type of system they put in. So that's what really has kind of why we're really trying to move forward with this one section, because they have actually become a distressed area due to the NJDEP passing this new regulation. Is that pretty accurate, Fred? So that's why it's extremely important. And sure, it would be, I'm all for buying things in bulk and saving a little bit of money, but when we did the survey, with a lot of misinformation that went around through Main Street and Patriots Way, the people decided to vote no, and of course the people who really, really needed it the most voted yes. So that's why we decided to move forward with this, and we really can't get from step A to step B without this first process of doing the evaluation, and we can't apply for grants without getting the plan. So that's we're like in a catch-22 there. But I have Mr. Nicastro.
Well, I think you answered most of the questions, but I guess that is the big question. Basically, we're going to spend the 136 to see if we get it, and if we don't, are we committed to spend the other $850,000 to do it? Because otherwise, no, I'm saying that's what we got to look at, or are we just going to? Because it's an option. You're going to spend 136,000 if they say no.
Put on the shelf, if you don't.
Yeah, and it just sits there and you spent the 136, or are we going to say, okay, well, either way, that's going to be the big question, which way, because...
But I think even spending this money to really have any other options, even if any other kind of grants or fundings, you kind of got to have a plan anyway. Everybody wants a plan. You can't just apply for something without a plan in place. Is that correct, Gene?
Well, yeah, but I think other than NJIT, I don't think there's going to be any other opportunities at this point to get grant money.
No.
At this point, the
So
federal
I think we
government-
kind of looked at that.
I mean, and to be perfectly frank, I'm one that we shouldn't proceed in even thinking about a project if all we're considering is whether we get grant money. If a project is worth doing, it's worth doing with our own money, and we pay for it. So, to me, the grant issue, that's all fine and damn, but I think we should at least consider whether this is a project that we're going to not only pay the money to look at the plan, but then once the plan is done, we go forward.
It's a go project.
And it's a go. The one thing that definitely leans me towards doing this project is the 95% positive response on those residents on Park Place.
Yes.
So, I mean, I remember, they weren't as vocal as the ones that were against it last time that were here, but,
And the other thing too, Alex, we have St. E's that is in desperate need of sewers. I mean, they can't do some of the projects they wanted to improve the church area and to put in their school without having sewers. So there's a lot of reasons why I think, even though, $136,000 is a lot of money, but on the other hand, this is the only way that we can move forward and hopefully get the grant money. But I will support this project regardless if we get the grant. Of course, I know Sean and Jean are very aggressive on, following through with these and getting the grant money. And so I think that's something we really need to do. And I think Mr. Stazak had a question.
Sherry, going just historically, the Bud Lake Sewer Project, what portion was paid for by the residents and what was picked up by the rest of the taxpayers?
I have to go back and look, because Bud Lake was actually before my time, believe it or not.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I've been here for 13 years, but Bud Lake...
I have the answer to that question. Lisa remembered. It was 70-30. And what happened with that, and I do remember, and I remember from going through it, but I also remember the discussions most recently, 30% of the project, the reason why it was borne by the general taxpayer was because you had to improve the roads. You had to dig them up, you had to get new paving, mill them, pave them, and that was, everybody benefited from that. So that's why a portion of the project was paid by the general tax base.
70% was.
Which-
70% was assessed.
70, 70%.
70.
Okay.
But don't forget, this project too, you're gonna be redoing the roads that,
do the
with
roads
sewer
too.
lines.
Right.
You're gonna still do the same thing and repave them.
Yes, and the pump stations were also considered assets. So, so that's where it comes from, that direction. So, it's one of those things, it's like, and I will say that when the township, when they decided to put public water into the Old Flanders section, there was no vote. It was like, you're getting public water. Whether you need it or not, you're getting it. So, but in this case, we're doing it, I would have preferred to do the whole area because it's less expensive and maybe have a spread out time frame that you kind of hook in when you need it. Like, for instance, with the Hackettstown MUA down in the Mount Olive section, like Parkway and the houses down there, they weren't all forced to hook into it, but as their septics go, there is allotment available for those homes to hook into the sewer. So, but we don't even know if we can do it that way. It's sort of like, otherwise we're paying that price and then getting refunded, so that's how it goes with that. Anybody else have any questions? Mr. Kenny, did you want to add anything? No?
No, we were just confirming that there's no
Oh, Ray, I'm
resolution
sorry.
for the council tonight. Tonight's a discussion item, and I anticipate more of this at the budget hearings, depending on council's direction. I apologize, Councilman Perkins.
Yeah. Mr. Perkins?
Don't need to apologize. Thank you, Madam President. I don't have the survey results in front of me. I've got a pretty good memory. Other than Park Avenue, nobody's really interested in it. I'm not interested in funding $136,000 and passing that on to the rest of Mount Olive Township to see a viable, feasible, better engineering study done than has been done by our engineer at least twice, already estimated.
Ray, just to clear out, it's not a study, it's gonna be the actual design.
Design.
Yeah.
But, Gene, but that's not a lot different. You know, I mean, initially you came up with estimates of what we
Yeah,
thought
but
construction costs would
It's different in
be.
the way that we gotta do survey, gotta do wetlands and all that stuff. It's the design phase.
But I said, we knew we had to do that. You knew you had to do that.
We
when
never
were here.
did it before, so
Right.
that's
No, I understand. I'm saying, but we knew that before.
Yeah.
I mean, this was stumbling blocks when we had the county in here and we talked about, you know, what areas
Mm-hmm.
we might be able to go at. We're talking 15 homes out of the street that may have cesspools in them. We can talk about the DEP passing the rule, which is not a lot different than the private well testing rule. And if people have shallow wells and they go to sell their homes and they have it tested and the well is contaminated, they're going to have to take remedial action on that and possibly have to drill a new well. So it's not a lot different. One's clean water, one's dirty water. So we're just two separate sides of the spectrum. I'm not in favor. If it's in the budget, I will vote against it. I don't believe that the township should be required, that the rest of Mount Olive Township should be asked to fund a study to see if we can possibly then go even more forward and pass more money onto the ratepayers, and not just ratepayers, the taxpayers of Mount Olive Township to service approximately 20-some-odd homes on Park Avenue. I'm just not in favor of it. I
It's
wasn't
not
in
a
favor.
study, though, that's the whole thing.
I'm telling you right now, I'm not in favor of it. The rest of the council next year may be in favor of it, but I'm going to vote no, that this not go through into the budget. I am adamantly opposed to it. We got a letter from a representative from St. Joseph's, St. Elizabeth's, excuse me, that came back and disputed some of the facts that you're presenting, that their ground perks very well. They don't have any issues down there. They don't have flooding issues. We don't have any records from our Department of Health that can document any failures on any of the systems, the individual disposal systems. None do we have to even anticipate going forward. If the rest of the council, if 6 members want to vote yes for next year's budget, go right ahead and put it in. My vote's a no.
Anybody else have any comments? Alrighty, I'm going to open this, open up to the public now, Gene, or did you have?
No, I have nothing else.
I just want to clarify, this is this is the plans. This is, sets us
So
up.
there's design plans and specifications that, and Ray knows what it is.
Yeah.
It's the detailed portions of the project. mean,
I just wanna make
preliminary
sure
items
that-
are very preliminary.
Right, I just want to make sure the terminology is correct, 'cause a study is one thing if you're studying something, but this is actually,
There's planning reports that need to be done as part of the Green Acres, not Green Acres, thing, the other job already,
Uh-huh.
part of the DEP application. But the actual design is the final design. You're going to do surveys, we're going to do environmental reports. It's final plans to get ready to go to construction. With the NJIT applications, once you submit everything, they expect you to go in construction right away if
Right.
once they approve it.
exactly. And once you finish this, then we're going to know pretty much what a lot of our costs will end up being, and then the grant money, and if we get.
You'll have a better idea of the
A better
cost, but
idea.
Still subject to contractors' final numbers
Exactly,
too.
because you have to bid out for it, and you can't really bid out for it until you have this anyway, because you don't know what you're going to be bidding for, to find out what your costs are further on. It's sort of like this is the first step in order to go anywhere else, is that correct?
You're going to have to get the design done at some point.
That's
You know,
right.
If you want to move ahead, it's up to your decision if you want to move ahead with the project or not.
Okay,
I'm not pushing the project, I was asked to do something, that's what I did.
Yep. Got it.
Good job. Thank you.
Good job, thank you. And I'm going to open it up to the public now. Anybody from the public have anything they'd like to? Miss Elizabeth, would you please come and give your name and address for the record, please?
Good evening. You'll have to forgive me if I start coughing. Daycare, the germs that just keep on giving.
Yeah.
My name is Elizabeth Bancroft Hoke. I reside at 75 Main Street here in Flanders, and I am also here on behalf of Matt Johnston, who has his law practice at 19 Park Place. I just want to start by saying there are homes on properties, Mr. Perkins, other than Park Place that are in favor of this project. I am one of those homes. And I just, not to be snarky, but do you have public sewer?
Yes.
So, kind of nice to have it, isn't it?
If I'd had the choice, I would still be on a septic system and not be paying a quarterly fee to utilize a public service.
But there are those who are cesspools who do not have the choice but to upgrade in order to transfer title. So, just wanted to know. It's kind of nice if you do have sewer.
They bought the house.
I believe that I would hope that the council, in considering whether or not they're going to put the money forward to apply for this grant, which, if we do receive it, would be an excellent way to fund this project. Sometimes you do have to give a little for, you have to give a little on the big side for the little person, and those of us on Park Place and on Main Street right now are the little person. However, the values of our homes are greatly affected by the fact that we don't have sewer. The marketability of our homes is greatly affected because we don't have sewer. If we were to have to upgrade our septic in order to transfer title, or if we have cesspools in order to transfer title, that's a significant cost upfront and out of pocket, which makes it harder to sell our homes. Our homes are not as people coming from the east who want to move out to the country don't want to move out to the country and have a septic because it's something that's foreign to them and it scares them. Even though septics can be great, the unknown does scare people. And I understand that it is a lot of money to spend, but Bud Lake, there was the council at some point in time spent the money to do plans for Bud Lake. Now's the time to spend the money to do the plans for Flanders. We have a unique opportunity because there's the capacity with the sewer
Clover
plant.
Hill.
Clover Hill, thank you. We're in a unique opportunity, and it would be a shame to not take advantage of the fact that this opportunity exists. And to do these plans and then to shelve them would be a shame, but at least we have to get out there and see if we can get the NJEIT funding and see if we can go somewhere with this. I know that the mayor's from conversations with the mayor, he was on board. And frankly, St. E's is very much on board because they've been in some of the smaller meetings that we've had as a subcommittee on this project. I don't know why the individual isn't here tonight. I can't remember his name, but St. E's would greatly benefit from this project. And, oh there he is. Hi.
John.
St. E's would greatly benefit from this project, and the community as a whole who use St. E's, aside from just the people who live on Main Street and on Park Place, would benefit from this project. So I just hope that when you go forward and when you take into consideration the pros and cons and the dollar signs, and I do recognize that it is a lot, that you think about the benefit that this will bring to the residents who live in those areas, and many of whom have been paying into school systems where they don't have children, and the whole 9 yards for many years. And sometimes what goes around comes around, and in this chance, let this be like a come around and to help us out and to get us hooked into city sewer. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. And anybody else from the public? We have two. We'll go with this gentleman, and then, no, you can go first. And you want him? Okay. Yeah. John wants to go first. And you know the drill. Name and address for the record.
Yes. Hi, John Batch, 15 Sherman Place, Flanders, on behalf of St. Elizabeth's. And just to follow up on the previous comments, and I just wanted to comment back to Mr. Perkins. The letter that you were referring to was made in reference to Mr. Ratner's comments that were inaccurate. That's why the letter was sent.
Yes.
And I just wanted to make sure it's on the record. But certainly St. E's needs this for its current utilization of the sewers or its septics, as well as any expansion capabilities. So, please keep that into consideration. And as was mentioned by Jean, some of the burden of connecting into the sewer system would be borne by St. Elizabeth's itself. Thank you.
Thank you. This gentleman here, just please give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Sean Hopkins. I live at 1 Gerbert Street in Flanders. This is the third time that this has come up. Back in 2008, survey went out. It involved Old Flanders Triangle plus 2 other sections, and it was voted down. The council said no. It came up again in March of this year, and the survey went out, and majority of the people were against it. Council said no. And 2 days after the survey was reported to you, we came up with another committee for just Park Place. If the council is going to consider spending tax funds to do this project that has twice been shot down and now third time we're going to ask again for it, could you tell me what the need is for it? I haven't heard. I mean, I think Mr. Perkins, was pretty explicit with that. There's been no septic failures. So what is the need for sewers on Park Place other than the people on Park Place want sewers?
I can say in conversations that I've had with people in that section, a lot of times they do not report their issues with their septic because they don't want to be forced to try and put a new septic in an area that they cannot afford.
DEP,
That's what's come.
Isn't that
excuse
against
me,
DEP rules?
Excuse me.
Okay, go ahead.
That's why when I had asked people, why don't you go to the town and report it, they're afraid of having a financial burden that they can't afford, and they keep hoping that they're going to get sewers. That was a response that I had heard from a couple of residents in that immediate area. So why they haven't actually moved forward and said so, I do not know. But anyone with a cesspool, they try to sell their house, it's then going to become an issue.
Okay. They only have to replace the cesspool when they go sell their house.
That's correct.
So that'd be no different than if I were to go sell my house and my septic was bad, I would have to repair that also.
Yes, and if you have the room and the capability to put it in, it's one amount, and if you don't have it. But I don't understand why, if the people on Park Place, majority of the people on Park Place, including the businesses and the churches, want it, I'm not understanding why we shouldn't try to accommodate their wishes and the wishes of the rest of Old Flanders and Patriots Way who don't want it. We're not going there. We're going where the residents want it.
You're asking me as a resident to fund something that they want as opposed to something that they need. Bud Lake was a different situation where you had failing septics.
You know, I have to tell you, I had a brand new septic put in. 2 years later, we got sewers.
But you had a majority of people that had failing septics, correct?
We didn't have a vote. We didn't have a choice.
All right.
Okay.
But here's an instance where you don't have any failing septics. There's not a need. And if you're saying that there are failing septics and people aren't reporting them because there's a financial burden to them, there's going to be a financial burden to them whether they have sewer or septic anyway.
Okay, so your point is that you feel that there is not a need and
There
we
is not
should
a
move
need.
forward it. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Well, okay. Now, when back in March we had Christine Marion from the county, Planning Development, she's in charge of reporting to the state for the sewer servicing area. And she said the NJDEP rules say any property within 200 feet of a sewer main must be hooked in. And we had this discussion about, well, the people on Patriots Way, we can exclude them if they don't want to be in. But we finally realized that they have to be included. And the people on Main Street
And
have to be included.
They have the sewer line in the road already.
But they have to be included.
And they told us they don't want to be included.
And they don't want to be,
They don't
but
want
they
to be
have to be included.
And
All right, so the comments of,
And you know what, I got to say something. Since the line is already in the road and we're going to have the main hookup right there, if they decide, like say one of their septics went and they had a choice of putting in a new septic or hooking in by putting this line, am I correct, Gene, where the location will be, they could probably hook in at this point if they chose to? Yeah. So it actually does benefit them at some point, but we don't have to put the
no,
line
at
in
that,
the road.
at this point, they have to hook in. They're going to be within 200 feet of the sewer main, they have to hook in.
If we hook into that main line, they're within, that whole.
That whole street is going to be within 200 feet of the main line.
Because it's an active line.
They have to hook in.
And we also have down.
So have we, we had a study that said
Exactly.
95% of the people on Park Place want this, but what about the people on Main Street? Were they asked again?
On Main Street?
Yes. The survey only went out to Park Place. They didn't go to the people on
there
Main
was-
Street who are going to be,
No,
who
we
are going to
didn't
have to hook into
We
this.
did not have an additional survey go out to Park Place.
Okay, why not? Because they're going to have
Because
to
we had
hook
the
in.
survey already. We already
right.
had it. We knew the numbers on there.
Well, you asked another survey of the people on Park Place.
No.
No.
No, it was the same.
Mr. Canning, was there another survey?
No, there was not.
Okay,
No.
so this is just the results that were parsed
Right.
out for Park Place.
Correct.
All
Exactly.
right. So what was the respondents with the people on Main Street who have to be hooked in?
There was not a third question that went out there. As it was discussed before, I do not have those numbers in front of me. Some were for, some were against. I
Okay.
can't sit here and say 60% for, 60% against. I don't have that in front of me.
Mr. Brzezinski had done a study for the 107 properties and come back and said it'd be roughly $49,000 cost per property owner on average.
That was with the one system that was proposed. We're doing a different system that's considerably less expensive.
So you're coming up with a different system that's cheaper
low
than
pressure.
that 49?
Right, low pressure system. Gene, you'd have to, we can't hear you on the record, Gene. You have to go to the podium, I'm sorry.
Nothing's finalized, as we said earlier, because it depends on
Right.
the method of funding. But I think, looking at the same rationale we had before, I think the numbers are going to be considerably less in the neighborhood of in the 20s, high 20s, I think. I'm not quoted on it, but I think that was the number, the rough range we were
Right.
talking about, which is considerably less than the original design.
Right.
So considerably less than the 49,000. So why wouldn't we come back to all the people in the old Flanders Triangle and say...
We're leaving it open that if they decide at some point they would like to hook in, and before the project starts, they may come back and decide that they want it, especially when we start getting some firmer numbers in place, it could very well be. But I have a question for our attorney. Down at the bottom of Hackettstown Mountain, like Parkway and that whole area there, that area is serviced by the MUA, and the line is in the road. And it's optional at this point for people to hook in the sewers. Are you telling me that we should be going down there telling all those people they have to hook in?
Look, I do agree that the law does say if
Yeah.
you're within 200 feet. Now, I don't know the measurements and the circumstances
It's
down
right in
there,
front of
so,
the other line's right in
you know,
front of the
so
house.
I don't want to answer for that.
Okay, yeah, I don't want to put you on the
and
spot.
put somebody, in an
No, I understand.
But, we could certainly take a look at it with the administration if you're...
Because how it works down there right now, and because I did call the Hackettstown MUA because I'm selling a house to a client right now, and their biggest issue is the fact that the house has a septic and they don't want a septic, they want the sewers. and they're offering considerably less on the house because it has a septic instead of a sewer. So we're in negotiations. Mr. Stazak?
Question, Gene, that 136 is just for Park Place, right? That's not
Right.
designed for the rest of that development if we should come back to it, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
If you do the survey work and you discover that properties north of the Park Place Main Street intersection are within 200 feet of the main, then you'd have to revise these numbers, correct?
Gene, you want to come sit up here?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we discussed, Mr. Canning and I, we discussed it with the people too, is we need to have a good idea of what we're gonna, where we're gonna end this project. We can't start saying it's here, and we do all the wetland investigations, everything else, and then say, well, it's not here, it's here. We're just wasting time and money. Your money, not my money.
Mhm.
You know, but wasting
My money.
time, we want to do it twice, you know? So we have to decide where you want to go. And I'm pretty sure even Christine Marion was put up a question at the time where somebody asked her at the one meeting I was there, would everybody have to be tied in if they had a workable septic system?
And she said no.
And she said no.
Yep, she said no. That's
She said
absolutely
no.
right. Yeah.
No, but it was contrary to the regulation.
Mm-hmm.
But she did say no. And I think there'd be an argument regarding that, I'm sorry.
Just to be
Mr.
clear,
Canning?
the scope of the marching orders as by the mayor was to seek a council or a committee with the residents from Park Place, recognizing that there was a group of residents that were in dire need, whether it's a desire or want, however it's characterized. The mayor said that to have that committee that is on Park Place, and by necessity, it has to make a left onto Main to hook into Flanders Bartley Road. So the direction I've been given has been Park Place down Main Street. Now, certainly that can expand, but the very clear direction was provided to me.
Right.
The reason why we didn't go further up towards the, I'm looking at the map here, towards the railroad tracks is we start hitting the preservation area, and as we get up towards the firehouse, the sentiment in that area was, no, we're not interested. So the scope of the project has been Park down the Main to.
There's not many homes once you get.
Correct.
Before you get to the preservation area. That's why we went to this section.
And I have Mr. Nacastro.
So then, just to clear it up, so I have a better understanding this all, the 136,000 is based on the numbers for the homes on Park Place,
And part,
In Main Street going up to.
but not tying in those homes on Main Street.
no,
if
yeah,
needed,
no, they're,
Or
They're
that,
tied, the homes along Main Street.
Right.
Between Park Avenue and Main Street intersection, up to the Flanders Crossing,
Okay.
we have the access road.
Right.
Those homes are being considered to tie in.
okay, does that cover the 200, what we're talking about, homes within 200 feet of the sewer?
Well, not really, it doesn't cover Patriots.
Because-
Path, the Patriots Path?
Patriots.
Patriots Path.
Because, yeah,
It doesn't.
Patriots.
But that already has a sewer line in there, it had to be evaluated to make sure the sewer line's still.
my concern was just what we're saying, just to be sure, that if it is a law, we have to figure out, is it a matter of
I don't think you
hearsay
have a
saying?
lot more beyond 200.
That's what I want to know, because this is
Right.
going to change the numbers.
You might have one or two homes on the elbow at Main Street and Park Avenue right there, you might have one or two homes right there, but then you have the restriction of preservation area. So we're not really talking about expanding a lot more than.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if there was homes that needed to be hooked up based on the law that weren't included. That's what I was concerned with
Because
hearing.
there's no homes.
Then there's
off of Main
nothing-
Street
okay.
Other than Patriots.
That's what I just want to
Well-
make sure we're.
So that's where I'm a little confused, and I think maybe needs to be clarified, because in your report back in December of 2012, you had indicated there's 107 in the old Flanders Triangle, and if we take out the ones in the preservation area, there's 70. And Christine Marion had said that the line is basically the railroad track, so anything south of the railroad track on Main Street and Park Place, that was indicated as 70 homes. Now we're saying here it's 28, 30 some odd homes on Park Place and Main Street, so we're going to double the scope if in fact all these homes are within 200 feet of the main. And I think you're going to find out that it's going to be a domino effect. This home is within 200 feet, we bring it to this home, well then the neighbor is going to be within 200 feet, and just going to, I think you're going to find out you're going to end up with 70 homes, and you're having however many people on Park Place on this committee with no input from Main Street.
Other people in the other areas have been invited to join the committee, and they have chosen not to attend.
So
Main
everybody
Street.
on Main Street was invited for the
There was,
committee?
when we decided to have that meeting, there was a whole bunch of people here, and a couple of people said, could we come too? And we said, sure, absolutely. And there was notification given we were having the subcommittee, and nobody from those areas showed up. I thought a couple of people would. I thought it'd be great, but they didn't come, but they were all invited to attend.
Were letters sent to the people?
We
or-
didn't, they were here. Why would you want to send
Oh,
out a
so
letter?
if people were here at the meeting?
When we
they
were at
invited.
the, we were at the meeting and we decided to set up a subcommittee to further discuss the needs of Park Place, and there was a couple of people say, can I attend? And I said, absolutely.
All right.
And
So-
that information was given, but then they didn't come.
See, I only found out about this by reading it in the paper.
Well, sometimes, you try to put the information, but that was said right at a public meeting. We were right here. People who were involved in that area, people who were interested were right here. And matter of fact, there's one gentleman from Patriots Way. I said, absolutely. I was hoping he would come. He did not. And especially because Patriots Way has a sewer line in the road already. And then the other people who were also invited to come, they decided they didn't want to come because if it goes on Park Place, they were fine with it because they knew I believe they knew the people on Park Place needed it.
One further question to Mr. Brzezinski. When you say homes, if the people that are going to be charged for these, if they have a two-family home, they'd be charged twice, or is that just once? How does that charge work?
Gene, you have to get up. I'm sorry.
There's a lot of two-family homes in that area.
There's a couple, there's a three-family home, too.
There's a couple, Gene.
Well, if there's separate connections, they're gonna be charged by connection.
So if you have a two-family home, your assessment would be double.
I don't handle the assessments, I'm not gonna address that issue.
That's how they did it in Bud Lake.
And how do you count the number of connections then?
The number of connections is a connection for each dwelling unit.
Okay, so I mean, that answers that question I just asked you. If there's 20 homes, there's 20 connections. If there's
Correct.
20 homes and one of them is a two-family, there'd be 21 connections, correct?
Let's talk about units, it'll be 21 units and there's 21 connections.
Okay, so we're basing on units. All right. I had asked for clarification of all of the units that would be involved with this project. And I would ask that I could, further that request to a complete description of each unit that's going to be considered for this project.
You want a description of every property that's going
Yes.
to be considered for this?
Yeah, every unit that will be hooked into this. And if there are people out there
Do
with
we have,
failing septic, should...
excuse me one second, do we have that information yet, Mr. Canning?
That's beyond where I'm at, even on the scope. The scope of, Mr. Perkins was asking me for some from the thing. I want to make it clear, last year's survey was what I was asked to do, and I did that survey for the entire, what they call the Old Flanders Triangle. Subsequent to that, the scope focused upon Park Place with the line going down Main Street. The extent of my activity has not been to identify each and every house. I'm not even at that point yet.
Right.
The general concept that's brought before council, and what I've said for months and months, has been in December, we would bring the question before council. If we would fund it in the 2013 year, you would have the estimate from the engineer. If you wanted to fund it this year, that is an impossibility. We just don't have the money this year. So the next step is, okay, it's in the 2014 budget. At that time when we're vetting out the budget, do you want to fund this with the understanding that we would do further work to go towards the NJEIT? I am not at any point where I've identified, this person, Sean Canning, and everybody else on Park Place is going to be getting into this, because I'm not even there yet. If you approve, say, yeah, we're going to go ahead with this project, then by all means, we will get to that point.
Well, wouldn't we need to know how many units we're going to be able to deal with as far as the proposal for the cost? Otherwise,
I could. Mount Olive is a busy place. If I put in a ton of hours as it is, I could
I'm
do
not
that.
saying- I'm not saying
there
that you
will
don't.
be nothing done for a couple weeks.
Related to me, Sean, the thing is, we know it's going from one place to another place, so we know the overall length of the pipes. We counted the homes, we counted a certain number. If it's not 35, it's 37, then there's 2 more connections. I mean, that number is going to change the overall value of the project. So I think what we've done at this point is more than enough to make a decision on.
but I thought your comment before was if we didn't know the exact scope of the project, and we kept on changing it, we would just be throwing more money at
Well,
a
yeah,
project.
but we know what the exact scope of the project is at this point, based on
Okay, so how many
marching
homes?
orders we got from the mayor.
Okay, so how many homes are we talking about?
I don't have
Length of
minutes, I
street.
mean, I would talk about 28 to 30 homes.
I think I could answer that, Sean. When Gene calculates it in his engineer's mind, it's based upon the length of the run, not number of connections. To be honest with you, from what I understand, again, I'm not an expert in sewer connection, it's irrelevant how many connect, because they have to pay for the connection fees. What matters to us is digging up the road, running that from Flanders Bartley up to Main and Park, which I believe is 2,500 feet.
Connections, say, throw $1,000 in per connection.
Yeah,
You
and
know, so we might be saying,
It's not the lion's share of what this project
the
is.
sign's not gonna change anything.
if I could just, and I just want to ask a question, Gene. With the Bud Lake sewer system, now we went by the EDUs over there, so it was a different measurement, a different, how you calculate it. But if somebody put an addition on their house and they put a bathroom, they had to be charged another EDU. So they start out as one fee, but then they're paying two if they put an addition on. That's pretty much how it works. So I think on the same thing in Old Flanders Park Place, if you come to find out that you thought you had a one family, but it's a two family, or maybe it's a three family, maybe they need 3 connections, that actually benefits the whole project, but it doesn't mean you need extra pipe in the road.
Right.
It doesn't increase the cost on that part of it.
The cost of the connection.
They have to pay the cost of the connection, and overall, it actually helps everybody else if there happens to be a couple of 2 or 3 families, that instead of just going on the basics of this building, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 28 buildings, if one happens to be multifamily, it's a plus.
I'll tell you, at this stage, we just throwing numbers, if there's a couple of two-family homes, I don't have that in my record, I don't.
Yeah.
You know, I just don't.
And it could be that somebody decides to go in afterwards and make a 2-family home. A lot of those homes that are 2-family now started out as 1 family and became 2-family.
You can find that through the tax records.
Right.
But we didn't get to that point.
Yeah, we're not to that point yet. We're trying to get the basics. You can't find, there's no point in spending time analyzing that part of it until you find out what the cost is to get the pipes in the road and get to that point. And then after that,
Well, I
when
think
it comes to
time
the
is a little bit cheaper
connection.
than money, isn't it? Isn't time a little bit cheaper than money when we have those resources here in town?
Time is money.
Time is,
I'll tell you
yeah,
that.
time is definitely money. And when we get to that point, we'll make sure that when it comes time to make the actual connections, each one will be evaluated at the time, so we'll know what we're going to assess each property. And that's when our tax assessor comes in after the pipe, after you get to the next point. So you're kind of like, at this point, you want us to take time, which is money, resources that, believe me, we're stretched to the limit, now with the resources. You want us to pull people away from other tasks to find out information that if we end up not going for this project, we didn't need it anyway. And it's not going to change the decision on it.
Well, I think that's my right under the Open
Oh,
Public
you
Records
can
Act,
ask,
right?
you can absolutely ask, but if it's not information that is readily available, by law, there's no we are not mandated to go out and create a report for
Well, I'm not asking you to
anyone.
create, I'm just asking for information that is here on the records in the
If you
town.
go to the county, which are you an appraiser or an assessor,
An
tax
assessor.
assessor? You have those resources available. You could just go to the county tax board records and look that up yourself. When I wanted to find out about cesspools and I wanted to know how many houses there were, how much municipal property, I spent about 3 hours going through that website and getting all that information to give it to Mr. Kenning, to give to Frank Wolpert Sr., to let me know which properties were what. I didn't ask the taxpayers to pay somebody at town hall
Mr.
to
Semrau, is
research
that a
that.
proper response to an Oprah request?
I don't understand your question. You're saying...
Well, Mrs. Labow said that I should just go to the county and do my own research if I want to ask questions about records here in
But Sean,
town.
I think you're asking questions, and I think everyone's trying to answer it too. And I think one thing that I would say to add to this is, if it comes to the point where the governing body wants to formally proceed, I think everyone's aware of the fact that that ordinance would identify all the properties that would be involved before any decision's made. And I think that's what we're trying to tell you.
That would be involved before you decide to fund 136,000 or after the 136? After the 136. So that's my point. You're going to identify those who may be involved after you spend 136,000. And what if you find that 50% of these people are against this at that point in time?
Mr. Canning?
The mechanism of funding by this council would be obviously the budget hearings, then the ordinance introduction of the budget and the passage. The actual awarding of this project would not commence, I would imagine, until about when we're going to be approved, May through late June, depending on when Trenton gets back to it. At that point, that ordinance consideration would certainly
Right.
come into play, because come next summer, we'd have to start moving, okay, how big does this impact, what's the scope? We have to get this grant application ready for the NJEIT in October. So we discussed it possibly in February. As we know, the budget is not going to be approved, advertised, and in effect earliest May, possibly late June. At that point, I would surmise, and I will certainly
Right.
represent on record, and I think I've kept you in the loop on this, haven't I?
And-
That if there's any progress on this, if there's a document created, I would certainly alert Mr. Hopkins, as I have
Yeah.
other members of the community who've asked me to keep them apprised. I've dropped emails, hey, it's coming up on this day, so
Right. Yep.
whatever I have, I've certainly shared.
And I want to share, I want to ask Mr. Hopkins.
Yes.
I just want to say, I believe 100% that everybody in the public certainly can have the information, but as I understand it, and I'll ask Mr. Samra to correct me if I'm wrong, through Oprah, if it isn't a record that we readily keep, that's available to give the public a copy of, we are not mandated to create that report or that record if it's not something that we already have readily available. And I think you're asking us, is that correct?
Yes, yeah, that's correct. But I also believe that if I take away from your questioning, Mr. Hopkins, it's that, okay, you asked about the number, okay? And I think that's all going to evolve over time. And I understand your question, but it just is going to evolve. And we have a general number right now as to what's involved. The one point that you made about the mandatory connection and how many other properties that may impact, I think that's relevant to your question. I think that needs to
Yeah.
be answered. But
And
as far as
that's
just to
my
go
point.
count right now and get into, records requests and things like that, I don't think the timing is right for that right now. I think down the road, all that information will be more specific. But I think we owe you an answer
Yeah.
about the connection.
And that's really my whole point that I'm trying to
And-
get out here. I think
Right, and
the
I would
questions I asked
also-
about how many properties and who's going to be involved should be answered before you even get funding for the construction
Right.
plans.
Well, I don't know if we need to find that out just now, but I do want to find out the answer to that because I know of several properties in town where the sewer line is running right in front of the house and they're not connected. So, it could be that that's...
We don't need
yeah.
to speculate.
You don't
We'll
need-
get
yes,
the
we'll
answer.
find out,
We'll get the answer.
We'll get the answer to it, but we don't have the answer tonight to be able to tell you. Yeah, so we can get that answer. That's not an issue, but I don't think that kind of, right now, the question on the table is that we want to find, well, we're not even voting on this tonight. This is information for when we get to the 2014 budget.
Right.
And so we're not making a vote on this. Gene's presenting, this is what we need prepared, that we need to put into the budget, and this is the number. And it's an to explain to the council what this number is when we get to our budget hearings, because our budget hearings kick in right away early in the year. So we wanted to get this information together. If there's, like your question, I think is excellent. If there's properties and you have to hook it in, we definitely need to be aware of whether that is definitely a mandate, or can you even put it something like, if it's 200 feet away, I would think that, I would like Mr. Samro to double check on this. If it's a mandate that you have to be connected, there's many towns that it's the connection you connect when you need to connect if your current system goes bad. It could be something like that, within the 200 feet. But then, so I'd like clarification.
Yeah,
if,
that's an important question.
Because I want to, because it could be that. And I'm sure if somebody's system goes and they have a choice of hooking into the sewer or getting a new septic, they may want to do a new septic, or they may want to hook to the sewers. But if they can't, they're going to have to, so you need to know that answer.
Right.
So,
right.
Anybody from council? Any other questions or concerns?
that's it.
But
Thank
thank you for bringing to our attention certain questions that you have that we can find out the answers. And just state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Quentin Ketterson. I live at 9 Park Place.
Quentin, a little bit closer to the mic, please. Thank you.
Is that better? All of us recall in the 1970s when the state of New Jersey tried to pass casino gaming. It went down in flames. Then they said, what we ought to do is we ought to limit it to Atlantic County. That went down. It was only when they limited to 2 streets in Atlantic City that it passed. The point is that there are certain things that appear to benefit one community, but actually benefit the state. That's the first point I want to make to the issue of whether or not Park Place residents are being unfairly advantaged. Secondly, I would like you all to visualize an inverted Y. That's the way water flows down off that mountain. One leg of that mountain comes to us on Park Place. The other leg of it goes around us and goes to the back of all those homes on Park Place. Phyllis has very magnanimously allowed her property to be flooded each time there's any kind of a storm. She has no legal obligation. In fact, to the extent that there is any legal issue involved, it's perhaps taking her land without compensation. We want to get the legal issues. We built a swale to divert it so it wouldn't flood back in the vicinity of our friend, Mr. Hopkins. If the swale went away, or if her pipe that takes the water off that second leg, it would go back to Mr. Hopkins' area and all along the back of Park Place, and would indeed flood a lot of places. And those few septics that are functioning properly now would soon not function properly, certainly. So my only point is that while we can argue policies, we agree, policies are fair questions. There are legal issues, certainly. But what I'm alerting you to, the pipe that comes down that lake has that much remaining clearance without a storm. You can see it yourselves. Drive down Park Place, look at the race, look at the pipe. What we need to be mindful of is it's about to get worse. We ought to deal with it like it's about to get worse. We ought to find out what our alternatives are. Sean Kenning has done a spectacular job. So has, I apologize, I can't remember your first name. This
Gene
gentleman.
Bazinski.
We don't need to commit X millions, hundreds of thousands, or whatever. What we need to do is to find out what our options are. I see no reason why, in light of the gravity of what is almost certainly coming your way, flooding, whatever, you wouldn't take into account it's worth doing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Phyllis? Phyllis, do you want to go right here to this microphone? Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, I'm Phyllis Shelton from Flanders, 9 Park Place. And Sean, I've known you since you were a kid, not well, but I've known you. I know you know my son.
Phyllis, you have to address the council. You can't address
Council.
the other residents or...
Okay, but I just was wondering when he was standing up there, because I don't think there's an option at this point for him to get sewers. And I can't understand why he's so adamant about the whole thing. Actually, and I'm sure you have a reason, a good one, but being in real estate 30 years, which I hate to admit, I do know for sure that people with sewers have more value to their homes than people without them. And I think if you have them, you're accepting that. If you didn't have them, you'd understand exactly what I said. I do remember the day we got a letter saying that, and I was so happy, frankly, that we were going to get city water. We weren't, as you said, asked. We didn't vote. We were just told that was what it was going to be. And believe me, in the long run, it's turned out to be such a good thing. Mm-hmm. And I cannot understand why. Just imagine large cities with septics. It's not possible. You have to have sewers. It's the modern, the updated way to go at this point. Septics are going to be out of date before too long. It has to be, because we're taking our land and using it for things that shouldn't be in it. And then it gets bad, and then you have to do another section. I watch this happen all the time. And if you do have your sewers, you're in much better shape for yourself, or if you're going to sell a house. And you just need to kind of consider that. We pay taxes. I don't even want to tell you what I pay. because it's terrible. It doesn't leave me a whole lot left over once I pay my taxes. And I would think that I should have some kind of a say-so, being that I do pay taxes. I've tried to make my land beautiful. I take care of everything. The minute it starts to look like it needs something, it gets painted or things happen to that. I work and spend most of my money, and I'm not just saying this, on my properties, because I want it to be a beautiful section of this little town. And sometimes I wonder if I'm even appreciated. It kind of hurts to just say personal things about this, because I love the little town. If I didn't, I'd have been gone a long time ago. And I try to make things look good. I pay my taxes. I try to do things that are right. And I guess I just can't understand why all of us can't see, and I'm not talking about you, I mean everybody, the future, that if you spend the money on sewers, it is not going to cost you any more than putting a new septic in. It just won't. And you can pay it over a long time, as opposed to the man that does your septic, he wants his money when he's done. And that's hard to come up with. I couldn't do it, and a lot of people can't do it. And that wasn't explained in that letter that was sent around. And our voting, which I'd never heard of before, which did happen, it's okay, it did happen. People were shocked because they didn't understand it. That was the basic thing. They did not understand what everybody was putting in front of them. And they had to say a yes or a no. But if you think ahead and think that the future is right out there in front of us, it's not for septics. It is for sewers. And I don't know how many of you people have the sewers, but when you do, it's a wonderful thing. And our septics are sitting there where some of the pieces of land, and I have some, you could not put a new sewer in, a septic in. You couldn't do it. There's no room. You'd have to do what they call a mound system. And what does that look like? Have you seen them? They're pretty ugly. And this, I know you don't care for that much, but I'd just love to tell you that I feel, and maybe I'm wrong, if there's more of a historic area around, let me know about it. But I think that little street of Main Street and Park is the history of Flanders, and maybe the township should be, really. And we should try to preserve that and keep it, because this is our history. I watched them tear down, for example, people probably saw it too. It made me sick. It had to happen because that was what they call progress. Those 3 buildings that just went down last week for Siemens. I don't know if you've seen it, but I kept thinking, and I never said anything about it because I didn't know what was going to happen, that barn, which has been there for years, could have been a reception area, where they could have saved part of that and make it look a little bit. Now wait till you see what's going to happen, because it's all just going to be big buildings. It would have kept part of the charm anyway, had they even thought about doing that. And I used to be on the historical committee, and I don't even know if we have one anymore. I would like to do it again, because I would try to make that happen. And I think during the negotiations, whoever was in on it, that wasn't even thought of. It was just take those buildings down. And the other houses weren't that special, but that barn, the front part of it, was, I thought, charming, but it's gone. And that's what's going to happen to Park Place and Main Street if we don't do something about it. And it kind of makes me sick that I've worked on these old places with hammers and nails and everything else, trying to put most of my money that I've ever made in my life into these places, and to see them kind of up as a question mark as to what's going to happen. I really feel that if you put sewers with all the houses that you can that have the opportunity, especially old places like that, it's going to revive them again and keep the old town like it is. I don't know what's going to happen to it if you guys don't vote for it or don't want it. It's going to be a sad thing for me to see that most of my grown-up life I've tried to make it look nice there, And I don't know what's going to happen when you see these big mound systems and people trying to, when we have our last, what I think is our last opportunity to put in our sewers. And it is the thing to me to do. I can't imagine, and you talk to people that have them, they can't imagine having septics again. I mean, I've been to Europe several times, and a lot of it was a long time ago when I was working there. And I saw what people did, and I didn't even understand it. And this is a personal thing to say, but in your loos, your bathrooms there, no toilet paper went down. They had like a bucket with a lid on it, and when you finished, that went on it. And that's how they saved what little septics that they had. Now, going back there, I see that that's all changed. It's all sewers now. And it's made a huge difference in the towns and everything else. Just think about the future when we're not here. And your kids, if they do stay here, we need this. And this is my feeling. I think we really need this. If you can prove to me that we don't, I think I can prove to you that we do. Because I have to watch, for example, the people on both sides of me when they come in, to give them a whole long list of what not to do when they move in, because they don't understand it if they come from sewers. What you can't do, and I have a big list typed up, laminated, and you just have to hope that they're going to listen to you, because maybe they will and maybe they won't.
Thank you, Phyllis. I agree
I'm
with
sorry
you.
to keep talking, but it
I understand.
emotionally gets to me.
No, and I just want to say that, did you want to add anything else, or do you want to, we'll continue on?
No, that's
we'll
it.
talk about it
And
more.
I do wonder why
wanna-
some people that aren't even involved, except for the tax ramifications, which aren't going to be that great, are concerned about it that
Well,
much.
sometimes, Phyllis, it's good to have, people
It's
opinions.
good to have different opinions.
And opinions, and then we can address issues and, questions and find out before they become any further. And I will say, did you want to add?
No, I'm
Okay,
just,
good, thank you.
I'm sorry I've gotten so personal about it.
No, that's fine.
But I
just
love
wanted-
that little town.
I want to say also, just to point out with what Phyllis has to say, also the other thought I had with the whole Highlands preservation thing is about the water supply. And we have all these tributaries right there in Old Flanders, which is also another reason why having sewers right there would probably be a very good idea. And I will say, trying to call in some of the landlords in Old Flanders for rentals, the first thing they want to know is how, even though some of the buildings are not yours, or somebody else had called and they had 4 bedrooms, but they can't take 4 people because their septic can't
That's
handle
exactly
4
right.
people. But they don't come to the town and say that because they have no room to put a septic. But so they're kind of like charging less for rent because they can't accommodate as many people as the building will.
And you have to be careful with.
And you have to be careful. You don't want it to sound, but sometimes it's a huge financial burden. So the reason why we need to, I feel very strongly that we have a lot of people all over the town that spend a lot of money for some services they absolutely never use, but it's part of making our community better, and this is part of improving our community overall. So,
I just wanted to say too, thanks, but that we need to move forward in this town and show Chester has a historical area, and it's beautiful. It brings people all around. It makes them income and money. Mendham has it all around. I mean, our only little town is really, we don't really have a town if you think about it.
yeah, Phyllis, we have to kind of move on. So
sorry about
that's
it.
okay.
But I just-
We understand.
Just want you to think about
it's
the
bad.
future.
We do. Thank
For
you.
not just me or you, but our kids.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Phyllis. I certainly understand what you're saying. I understand what Mr. Hopkins is saying as well. We all are passionate about our, thought process on this whole entire project. And it's good to get all the information on the table. So moving right along, if I can find my agenda, because we have a lot more to go on the meeting. And Phyllis, I didn't mean to disrespect you or cut you off. I just have to kind of move on. It's icy out, and I'm getting very, very nervous because I could barely make it here tonight, slipping all over the place. So I worry about everyone getting home safely. Next on our agenda, we have approval of minutes of previous meetings. Mr. Ferrante.
I'd like to move for the approval of the November 26, 2013 workshop and public meeting present. Minutes.
Second.
Any discussion, questions? Seeing none, vote please, roll call, please.
Mr. Frente?
Abstain.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Stazak?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes. Alrighty. Just want to ask a question. Figure that out later. All right, next on the agenda is our
I was not present at that.
Yeah, that's what you weren't
Okay.
present at that one. Okay, yeah, he was not present. All right, we'll correct that. Thank you. Yeah, I thought that you weren't. Correspondence, we have 21 pieces of correspondence tonight. Do we have any questions, concerns, comments? See none? Can I have a motion? Oh, no, we don't do a motion for that, sorry. I have a really bad cold, so it's kind of hard to concentrate. Ordinance for public hearing. Alrighty, it's our second reading. Just want to explain to Brandon, when we have ordinances, you'll have two readings. It's called the first reading, which we don't have any this evening because because most of all we're at the end of the year, so we probably wouldn't have time to do a second reading. But what we do is you'll have a first reading, which is an introduction, and we'll announce the date when the second reading will be, when it then actually becomes enacted into law. So for tonight, we just have the second reading. I just wanted to explain how ordinances go. As I said before, Brandon's working on his citizenship in the community. And we're very happy to have all of our scouts. We want to come on up and come to our meetings and join us on the dais and ask questions and learn about our local government. So I open the hearing to the public on ordinance number 30-2013, Township of Mount Olive Highlands Preservation Area Land Use Ordinance. Mr. Perkins, would you please move that for us?
Yes, I move for adoption and final passage of ordinance number 30-2013.
Thank you. Second. Any council discussion? Seeing none. Anyone from the public? Any discussion? Seeing none, could I have roll call, please?
Mr. Frente?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Stazak?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes. Ordinance number 30-2113 is passed on second reading, and I hereby direct the clerk to forward a copy of the same to the mayor and publish the notice of adoption as required by law. Next on the agenda, we have ordinance number 31-2000. Wait a minute. Lisa, why do we have... Oh, I'm sorry. I read it wrong. We have 31-2013 entitled, An Ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Mount Olive amending ordinance number 36-2012, which established salaries for the mayor, council, department heads, supervisory personnel, and employees of the township clerk's office. Mr. Roman, would you please move that for us?
I move for adoption and final passage of ordinance number 31-2013.
Second. Did anyone from the public have any questions, concerns? See none? Anybody from the council? Okay, I actually have a question because I'm a little bit confused, Mr. Canning. Normally we'll have an executive session before we increase salaries beyond the percentage that was approved in the budget. But I see a position on here I don't ever remember seeing before. That's a sports ombudsman?
I believe the mayor did brief council on Mr. Lasitra as the basically liaison between the recreation and the sports groups.
And we're paying for that? The taxpayers are paying? Where's Mr. Hopkins? No. I mean, we're paying $1,500 a year for something that's going to be for the sports, and that's coming out of taxpayers' dollars. I don't understand that.
It's being paid for out of this recreation utility. We've identified a very clear need, which has been overwhelming Jill in the recreation department. Mayor proposed Mr. Lasitra as an ideal candidate. He's been pretty much doing it gratis the last couple of months, but he's certainly been able to head off and solve a lot of problems which were festering. It was taking Jill's time away from the utility, which is suffering on some of the sponsorship.
So now, Well, the question I have a concern with this is only because in the code, I believe that if you're politically involved and such, he works for the senator in the assembly. Can he have that position, do you know? Because I don't think you can you get, well, it's not really a salary, so he's not getting
No, but,
benefits, but.
So long as, his involvement isn't when he's performing these responsibilities, I think he's
Okay.
He's fine.
I just want to make sure, because I don't want to turn around and have a lawsuit at it, but could you just clarify that just in case? And it
Yeah,
is coming out of the recreation utility, which is funds that the sports groups raise, so they are in essence paying that. And any other, is there anything else on here that's above and beyond the 2%?
I'm not so sure. Yes.
But I don't know if we should we have had him present, or that doesn't
Yes, there
matter?
is, yeah. Sherry just briefed me that both Mr. Totoro and Mr. Macer.
Wait, can we, wait. Can we discuss specific names if we don't
Yes,
raise them?
no, you
Okay,
can.
I'm sorry.
We're not talking about performance,
sorry.
we're just talking about the actual
Yeah,
responsibilities.
the two exceptions would have been Michelle Macer in the clerk's office and Mr. Totoro in the fire marshal's
Okay.
office. They're both given $2,500 extra.
Okay.
Everyone else is at 2%, Colleen.
Okay.
Okay.
I just want to make sure. It was just when I was looking through here, I was like really surprised when I saw a new position on there. So I'm glad you clarified it, that it's coming out of the recreation utility. And also just for clarification for the public, that the recreation utility, which is I think was a phenomenal concept, they actually raised their own funds to pay for their salaries. And so this is a case where it's the users of the municipality that are actually paying for the services.
Correct, self-liquidating, it's paid for by the sports groups, and our experience with him so far has been very invaluable, and we believe by freeing up Jill from having to kind of ride herd, it's been able to free her up to do
Right.
what she does best, which is run the utility and make it self-liquidating.
And I have to say, I try to volunteer at every one of those events that I can, and I think it's absolutely amazing the amount of time and work that our staff puts in for that. It's absolutely phenomenal. Great job. Okay, that's what my question was. I wanted to make sure that I understood where that was coming from. Because I apologize, I missed the last meeting when it was introduced. Mr. Nicastro? Oh, no, Mr. Perkins? Oh, I thought you were raising your hand. Oh, okay, you guys are having your own conversation, sorry. Can I have roll call, please?
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Stazak?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes. Ordinance number 31-2013 is passed on second reading, and I hereby direct the clerk to forward a copy of the same to the mayor and publish the notice of adoption as required by law. Next on our agenda, we have consent resolutions. We have, is that?
1 through 11.
Yeah, but the one that you added on, is that non-consent or consent?
11.
We're adding it tonight, so it will be number 11 on consent.
On consent, I just want to make sure. We have 1 through 11 consent resolutions. May I have a motion to,
I make a motion that we approve consent resolutions 1 through 11.
thank you, Mr.
Second.
Stazak. Mr. Roman, a
Second.
second. Any questions, concerns? Seeing none? Roll call, please.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Stazak?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes. Next on our agenda is our bill list, and I'm going to ask Mr. Nacastro, would you please move our bill list for us?
I move the bill list.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, concerns? Anyone from the public regarding our bill list? Seeing none? Roll call, please.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Abstain on check number 64252, and yes to all the rest.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Stazak?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes. Administrative reports, Mr. Canning.
Thank
What's
you,
the
Madam
good word?
Just two items. One, the auto refuse is now into its second week. Overall, it's been going according to plan. I want to commend Jimmy Lynch in particular on this. He's been shepherding both that and roads in different aspects. But so far, the biggest thing that's been kind of inundating us has been there's two items. One is the swap outs. So far, we've done to date 211 can swap outs. So that was, despite our advertisement, we kind of knew this was going to happen. But once the cans were delivered, thus far, and we expect more, there's been 211 residents that have said they want the smaller cans. So, you know, we've, in interest of customer service, been physically taking the old cans and swapping them into the smaller cans. The other two things we're getting callbacks on, actually three. There's been a lot of concern saying I need, you know, a larger can, or I need to throw more garbage out. What we're asking people's patience on that. We're going to get through the holidays, as this is a higher solid waste time of year. Once we get to January, our next phase in this, we want to start the recycling education program combined with the warning program, because I am very much convinced, just my own experience and from what's been out on the side of the road that I've been able to see and get reports back, there is some, you know, styrofoam and boxes and things that really don't need to be in the solid waste stream. They're out in the solid waste stream. We got to get them out of that into the recycling stream. It's a big hit. I know you and I have spoken about this before, and it does cost us quite a bit in the overall tipping fees. Once that's done, then I think it's time to sit there and reevaluate come late January or early February where we're at, and then on a case-by-case basis bring the ordinance to council, looking at our whole garbage collection, you know, and how many gallons and how many cans we'll allow at a fee. But we want to get to these two processes first, and then reevaluate.
Mr. Rowan?
Sean, what are you expecting people to do now that do require, because of the holiday season, that they are you just having them hold on?
We're taking the garbage. We're ever since Thanksgiving onward, we've made it very clear that we're in the transition stage. We're taking what's put out there right now, and we're going to continue to do so right through New Year's. And then at that point, we're going to start hitting our slow season, and it's a perfect time at that point to start saying, okay, listen, your plastics 1 through 7. It still amazes me. I get calls all the time. You know, I didn't know my dry cleaning bag is recyclable. My styrofoam's recyclable. They're all plastics 1 through 7. You know, they're bulky items in some cases. They should be out in the recycling. Your pizza boxes, your packaging. You know, if you're recycling properly, you know, a family of 5 is going to generate 2, maybe 3 bags of garbage for the week.
Is there anything that we can put on the town website that would be informative, you know, as far as either website or a link that we can provide to people so that when they do have a question, says, look, just watch this video?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's something, because I, for one, didn't know styrofoam was recyclable.
Hang with me, you learn something new every day. But
Or my dry cleaning.
we're in the process of that, and I know that's part of our ramp up. We already have Christy Stashnik's working on it, a sample flyer. We want to get it on Facebook. We want to get it out into the website. We really disseminate it. We already offered Mr. Quinn to star in one of our bandit videos. Serious, we want to get a 3 to 4 minute video, not long. How this works, where to place your cans, what to do with your recyclables, you know, what's available. So we're really gonna we're planning on ramping that up right after Christmas, because
Okay.
I didn't want to inundate the whole town too much, because right now everybody's just kind of getting used to, hey, here's my new can, where do I place it? You know, do I keep it within 4 feet? And I didn't want to do the information overload, so we were kind of hoping to wait for a couple weeks and then start phase 2.
I have a question. It's just a suggestion. When you get to the point, like after the holidays, I think the best way to really get the information home to the parents is to actually introduce it to the students in the school. And you actually make them part of the process, and it has an unbelievable effect, because they'll go home and say, oh, Mom, Dad, we have to recycle this. And they could say, this will save us money. You know, and you can even...
And I know they have programs in the schools already, but they're mandated, but we can see if we can
But it's
piggyback on that, or even send flyers home and
It's a little bit different, and if you do a video, even if some of the parents were so inclined to include them in on a recycling video, and then they watch it more because their friends and are involved. It's just make it a fun way to draw more attention.
Yeah, it's an excellent thought. I know we've been having status meetings. Last week we were having them every day. This week we're planning on having them twice this week. The weather's kind of messing us up. I'm going to get to that in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
The last part is in our can dissemination. We ended up missing our vendor. My guess, Jimmy, about 7 to 10 of residents. So we're taking care of those residents now. And the last concern we're getting. Normal operations, we would have been well along this week. A lot of people putting those tags on the cans, take them for recycling. We just haven't gotten to them this week. The ice and the snow this week is starting to put us back about a day or two. And I don't know how we're going to be tomorrow morning. I anticipate with the weather being a little bit cold, we're going to be out salting and sanding again. So we're going to try to get those recycling cans. We've just been asking people, be patient. It's a big town. We'll get there.
I want to say that last week, I was waiting for them to come. I had to go out on an appointment because I really wanted to see them in action, and then when I left, I got down the street and I saw that they were at the other end of 3rd Street. So I went down there and I pulled on the side and I got my camera and I was ready to
I
take
saw
their
it, too.
picture. And it was so funny. I think they were probably thinking like, who is this crazy lady taking pictures of us? But I did notice, as hard as they tried not to tip over the recycling cans, people have to understand you really need 2 to 3 feet on either side of your can, and it's, you know.
We're asking for 4, but we can do it less.
Yeah, exactly. But then what happened was yesterday I saw going up and down the streets that people had the garbage can over here, the recycling can on the other side of the driveway. They had plenty of room. Because I know even when I told my husband moving them apart, and I got home and my recycling was all in my driveway. The recycling truck hadn't come yet, so I had to pick it all up. And this time we made sure we had it further apart. So
The least of our complaints has been the service of the one-armed bandit itself. That's been the highlight of it.
yeah, and
so
you
far. It's been very
exactly. You
efficient.
just kind of learn what you can do and not do. And I think the guys are doing an absolutely fantastic job. And anybody has any questions, concerns, I think, and positive feedback is always appreciated.
We'll take negative too. I engage.
We'll take negative, but negative just sort of flows without any kind of encouragement.
Speaking of negative
Positive.
feedback, we're on to the snowstorm today. This has been our 3rd storm this year, and we're getting some complaints about the service between yesterday and today. Part of it's frustration because of the weather. Part of it's legitimate. I've directed both Mr. Lynch and Mr. Quinn. We're going to have a DPW staff meeting on Friday. I've directed them that I want to move more towards the ICS system with our snow removal. We tried a different method last year. I'm with various levels of results. Some were good, some were bad. I want something more consistent. I've spoken to the mayor about this, matter of fact, right before the meeting. I'm asking them for a plan, and hopefully going to be able to unveil that to council within a week by next Tuesday.
I saw that email. I thought
Yeah.
that was a fantastic idea.
We're going to try to operate more along the lines of ICS and more strict fixed accountability of routes so we can identify training inadequacies. Not that today was a bad job. The guys really tried as best as they could. And again, there's a learning curve every winter, and in some areas of town we had some good successes and others not so much. So we're going to
Well,
address that and rectify it.
I thought it was really admirable of our staff, the fact that we have 2 huge collection weeks during the year. One is after Thanksgiving, the other one is after Christmas. And we actually launched a new system on one of the 2 busiest days of the year, and they just did an incredible job. So my hat's off to you guys, Jimmy. Great job. And it wasn't like, sometimes they'll plan it for like a slow time. We go and jump like right into the fire on one of the busiest weeks.
Believe it or not, back in October was the kickoff date.
Exactly.
We ended up with production delays, and we didn't want to wait another 2 months until January.
Absolutely, 100%. And then this week, we got it during the ice storm. So it's like, wow, first the busiest week and then an ice storm. So you guys are really great. I really appreciate it. And do you have...
Jim and Tim and his crew are doing a good job.
They've really doing a fantastic job. The next, do you have any other? Okay, very good. And next on our agenda, we have old business. Seeing none. New business. Seeing none. Legal matters.
Yes. First, the Municipal Excess Liability Fund put out a seminar in November where any elected official that takes the seminar can actually obtain a $250 credit towards a member's insurance premium. So if the governing body would like, we could do that seminar before a meeting next year, and then you'd actually be making money for the township just by hearing the ethics seminar that the fund has put together. So I could come one night early. If we could start, we
appreciate
could do that if you like.
Could you let us know what meeting times would be good for you? And also, is there a limit as to how many elected officials for that?
It would have to be elected officials. So
It has to be elected.
Yeah, so everyone on the governing body would be eligible for the $250.
So it has to be elected,
Yeah.
okay. Let me ask you this question. What about if they're Board of Ed members?
No, because this is your membership in the insurance fund, so.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because if it was possible to, invite it.
Yeah.
Could we also invite other towns to come and let you know, or just do it for?
Yeah, we could do that as well, actually, but then we could do that sort of on an off meeting night. We can
Okay.
ask the fund to make arrangements to come out and and do sort of a regional session for any other municipalities. It's
Which
your
one-
choice, whatever the governing.
Yeah,
I
I was-
always find it's a little bit like an
Better-
advantage to just do it right
Do
here
right here.
before
Okay.
you're here.
I just wanted to ask just
We can get
in
it done in
case.
about
That's-
35 to 40 minutes, and then you start your meeting and you already are
Did-
done.
Did anybody go to the league and were they able to take the class? So Mr. Stazak did so? Anyone else seen? Okay. Then I would think that it would be fantastic if you could do that early. If you
We'll
could let
coordinate
the
that
clerk's
in
office-
January or February.
Yeah, and
Okay.
definitely do that. I would very much appreciate. Do we still have the online certification possibility available?
I think it will be made available at some point early next year with the
Oh,
mail
okay.
they did
But
last
it's not-
year.
Yeah, I did it last year. It was great. And actually, I think most of the council did it. I think we had everybody did it. And I would really love to have 100% participation. So that would be one way to do it. Thank you, Fred.
And we've been talking about the Cobblestone Affordable Housing Site and the due diligence. We are now expecting to receive the reports to see if the site could have, in fact, be suitable for this site. As you know, we filed a condemnation complaint, and it's been stayed subject to this issue about whether or not the site is suitable for development, and of course, valuation issues. We should have an update for you by the next meeting as to whether or not the site is suitable, and if so, to what extent. So we'll have that at the next meeting. And then just finally, because it's towards the end of the year, while there's certain members, employees that are here, I just want to say thanks to the administration. They've been terrific to work with. And Sherry's department, we've worked on a number of foreclosures. We get questions, good questions. They're right on top of everything, and they've been very terrific to work with to address any legal issues that come up. We're able to, they're really able to identify things, and appreciate that. And the same with Lisa's department. Anything we ask of you, even if we need to get something in 5 to 12, you're really okay with us. So. But I just want to say thanks. Thanks for all their cooperation during the year. Thank you.
I would like to say thank you to your office, because every time I have a question, I call up and I'm able to get the legal information and advice that I can count on, and everybody is just very accommodating and very, very pleasant. I thank you very much. It's really wonderful to know that, because as an elected official, you want to make sure that any information that you're putting out there, that you have the correct information, and I do appreciate, and I will appreciate getting the answer to some of those questions, because they are really important. I want to find out. So, okay, we have council reports, and we have Mr. Ferrante. Would you give us your reports, please?
The only item I have, I don't know if it brought it up last week, about Scott Davin, the library director, has left.
Yeah.
So the assistant director is replacing him for the time being until the board decides on a new director. That's all I have.
Thank you. We also have, Mr. Mania is not here this evening for the Planning Board or Senior Citizen Report. Mr. Nick Castro, can we
I have nothing to report on either.
Boy, you guys are not talkative tonight. Okay, next one is Mr. Perkins.
Nothing to report, Madam President.
Breaking my heart. Mr. Roman, you've got to
Nothing to
have
report.
something. Oh, come on, you had Candyland this weekend.
I wasn't there.
I was there, very briefly. Candyland was a huge success. They had 600 attendees, I believe. It was a phenomenal event. Absolutely excellent.
I saw it.
I'm going to
And
adopt a small Philippine kid so I can go there next time.
you're so bad. And I have to tell you, everybody was dressed in different costumes for the event, and it was really a lot of fun. The next person, Mr. Stazak, MOTV.
Nothing to report at this time.
God, you guys are killing me.
Let's go.
Well, TNR, I have nothing to report. So, but I'm going to make just a side comment as a report for events. Kiwanis and Mount Olive had, we had our breakfast with Santa Saturday morning at the Bud Lake Firehouse, and we had some local vendors as well as our attorney's office helped us with sponsorship. We had Tom from State Farm, we had Matt Johnson from the attorney's office in Park Place, and we had Charlie had the business Advanced Builders, and our fourth one was, oh my God, I'm going to apologize here. We had Clown Around, gave a gift certificate, and we had a huge success in terms of turnout. We had about 300 people there, made a lot of pancakes. A lot of kids had a really great time. They had the new fire truck out front for everybody to see, and we had Mr. Shields was there to help us out, and his mom, and I thank you very much, as well as Mrs. Picantero and several other members from the public were there to help us make this event a huge success. And the reason I'm bringing it up during council reports is 50% of our net proceeds is going to Mount Playmore. So I'm hoping that maybe other groups, if they have events and if they want to help contribute, that would be a wonderful, wonderful thing. So we're up to our public portion. Anyone from the public would like to say anything? Any comments? No? Phyllis is looking at me. No. And final council comments, please. Mr. Ferrante?
I have nothing.
Mr. Nacastro?
Nothing.
Mr. Perkins?
Nothing.
Mr. Roman?
Nothing.
Mr. Stasak, can I count on you?
Nothing.
Nothing. Mr. Shields, would you like to make a final comment? No, nothing.
Fits
And
right in.
you're hired. And I have nothing. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.